Good afternoon, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation. Playoff conversations only. Let's be honest, we're going to have some conversations about the Canucks. Tom Melander, Rick Tocchet. We're going to talk about this, probably in anyone else. But it is mostly playoff conversations on today's episode of Canucks Conversation. A two-guest episode. We don't have those all the time. Dave Hall is going to join us. I don't need to give an introduction. You know who Dave Hall is. He's joining us right off the hop here. And then we're going to be joined by Vancouver Warriors head coach and general manager Curt Malawsky. Very excited to chat with Curt about the Warriors. And look, I've been to some lacrosse games. I'm starting to pick it up, Harm. I changed my questions from Curt, thanks for joining us. What's a line change? Like how do line changes work in lacrosse? To, some more stuff. I'm starting to understand the lowdown a little bit more. So we're going to chat with Curt Malawsky as the Warriors get set to host some playoff games at Rogers Arena. Harm, how you feeling today?
Feeling great. And speaking of the Warriors, I think I am actually going to the game tomorrow. I'm far from a lacrosse expert. I'm definitely novice when it comes to all the rules and intricacies of the sport, but I've been to a couple Warriors games in the past. And I've just loved the atmosphere. And so, yeah, I was like playoff lacrosse.
Are you sitting in the suite?
I don't know yet. It's TBD.
All right, we'll talk after.
Yeah.
We'll talk after. Okay.
Are you going tomorrow?
I was thinking about it, but I have a baseball game. Carl texted me, and anyways, we can talk after the show.
Yeah.
I got a baseball game. Can't do it. But we are gonna be joined by Curt Malawsky as we keep Dave Hall waiting. Before we get to Dave Hall, I want to tell everyone that on top of the show being presented by Bet365, we have our Super Chat charity partner to tell you about, the BC Mental Health Foundation. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show? Hit us with the Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. We're going to get a full tally at the end of the summer of what we raised from the start of the season to then see what we can come up with there. It's been a while since we got a Super Chat, so hopefully we see one today. Okay. Let's bring in Dave Hall, who is brought to you by our friends over at Greta. Great spot, all games. Dave's been to Greta before. You got the arcade games, you got the bar, you've got the street food menu. Can't go wrong. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Watch all the games. Let the games begin at Greta. Play the football machine. Tell them Quad sent you. Someone do that and tell me what they respond with. I think they'd be surprised and a little confused. But someone do that and tell me how it goes. You see the Canucks Army logo right on the front of Greta. Dave joins us now. Dave, the Abbotsford Canucks have a do-or-die game on Saturday. What was different between game one when they won, and I listened to Rinkwide, won pretty handedly, it felt like, even if it came down to a penalty shot save from Archer Shelovs in the end. They were the better team on night one. What happened on Thursday night when they lost that game?
Well, it was a combination of a few things, to be honest. Like, for one, I will say, even in yesterday, in game one, they dominated. Like, it was quite obvious that they were probably going to win. And to be quite honest, in the first period last night as well, you kind of got the sense that Canucks were probably going to take this game. But as the game went on, there's just a lot of sloppy giveaways. That includes the third goal where Tristan Nielsen just coughed it up right up the middle, letting Kyler Yamamoto spring for a breakaway. But even aside from that, Silovs had to make some 10-bell saves point blank because of some sloppy giveaways. So I think that was a big concern. And then also just the lack of production on the power play. They got 5 power plays in the night and just couldn't get anything to go. And so at the end of the day, if you're not going to be scoring on 5 power play opportunities, you're probably not going to win the game. So yeah, giveaways, power play production, and yeah.
How have a couple of the top prospects, Lecker-Mackey, Ratu, Mancini, how have they looked so far?
Well, I'll start with Ratu. I thought he's probably been the best forward of the between those two. I'd say he still hasn't been super. I wouldn't say he's a top prospect that came down from Vancouver. I think he's been a little bit quiet. Like guys like Max Hassan, Arshdeep Bains, Sammy Blaze. Those have been the 3 that have really stood out. As far as Victor Mancini goes, he's been a one-man show out there. We were saying on Rinkwide last night, Cole McWard was in the game. He was dressed for the game as the third pairing right shot defenseman, but you almost didn't even notice him because it just seemed like number 90 was out on the ice every single minute of the game. It's just amazing the difference in play going from what we saw at the NHL level to the AHL level. And that's not out of the ordinary. We saw that with Brandstrom too. It's not, out of the ordinary to see a AHL guy trying to push for that spot, be a little more timid and, work the system a little more. But down the AHL, Victor Mancini has looked like 220-pound Quinn Hughes out there. So he's been a bit of a rover. So he's stood out. I've been, and this is no secret. He has no points and he's -5 and only has 7 shots. Oh, no, I guess now 9 shots in the 7 games that he's played since he's gone down. I've been expecting a lot more from Jonathan Lekkerimäki. He had a nice sequence yesterday on the power play where he rang one off the post and then rang one off the goalie's stick paddle. But aside from that, fellas, I'm not really sure you can say there's been any really standout moment from either of the 2 games from Lekkerimäki. And yes, he's 20. It's his first AHL stint in the playoffs, so we'll give him some grace. But at the same time, he's being put in positions to score. That's first line and power play opportunities. And, from a guy that was scoring at a pretty incredible clip for most of the season, you were really hoping to see a little bit more. And so far, we just haven't really seen that. And that stretches all the way since he's been sent back.
Shelov starts both of these games. Who starts game 3? And did it surprise you that Shelovs went back-to-back? Like, I would have thought Tolopilo was the layup for game 2.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to sit here and question Manny Malhotra's, coaching ability. Obviously, he's been fantastic. If it was my personal, I thought Tolopilo was the easy answer. I mean, he's been one of the more consistent goalies out of the all foursome in the past 2 years. Not only that, you've got a game in hand. If he does blow that one game, you still got game 3. And now you face that question of, do you start Shelov's 3 games in 4 nights, right? Like, they've kind of painted themselves into a bit of a corner here, just based on now it's kind of an awkward decision. I assume it's going to be Artur Shelovs. It's clear that that's their guy and they're probably going to ride with him. But like I said, that's 3 games in 4 nights now. And you're now, after having such an incredible franchise best 44-win season, your backs are in a corner. And so, yeah, I was shocked. I thought it was easy. Tolopilo. We saw Roadrunners. They made the swap and it worked out for them. 38 saves from Jackson Stauber, and he was the difference maker. So we'll see how it works out.
Dave, with the goalie picture, with the goalie situation, big picture, I was thinking about it, looking at the depth chart. You still have Shelovs, you have Tolopilo, who's an RFA. Yuri Patera is still kicking around. I know he's still only played 7 games because of injury, but he's under contract. Plus Ty Young, who was sensational in the ECHL and looked competent in the 11 AHL games he got. Plus they just signed Koskin Vuo to an ELC about a month ago. How the hell are the Canucks going to manage all of these goalies for next season?
Yeah, I have no clue. And you're right. It's been where in the world is Yuri Patera all year? He's been out. But yeah, it's going to be a big question, to be honest. And it's a little unfortunate that Tolopilo stands as the only one unsigned, because he may be the guy pushed out for that very reason. Whereas, in my opinion, I don't think he should be. I think he's been, I've been pretty vocal, but I think that he's probably been the more consistent of the 2. I know Shelov's had a pretty incredible run, but so has Tolopilo rather this year. So I would imagine, like, this is just, opinion. Maybe they try to deal away either a Yuri Patera or even an Artur Shelovs. They package him in something to offload, because I think at this point, I think Ty Young has shown enough that I think he has to get games. He has to be in that rotation in Abbotsford. I just think there's no use of having in the ECHL when already you're probably going to have that Koskin Vuo down there, and he's just played so sound. He's fit right in. So it's going to be a battle. I think the whole plan when, they first signed Patera was that Artur Shelovs was probably going to make that jump and hopefully fill out that backup role with the Canucks. I mean, obviously, I don't think they anticipated Lankinen to come out and be that good. So it's going to be interesting. All I know is that I think Ty Young has to be in that mold. And so whether it's Patera or Shelovs, I think one of them needs to be in a trade. But I think Tolopilo should be signed and Ty Young should be in the mix.
Dave, final one from me. Who's going to step up the most in game 3 here? It's do or die time. Who needs to step up the most?
Well, like I said, we need to see more from Lekkerimäki, and we also would love to see a little bit more from Danila Klimovich. He's been invisible, to be quite honest. And so it sucks for a guy that led the Abbotsford Canucks with 25 goals. He's been a sharpshooter, but I kind of mentioned on Rinkwide last night, and it's not a big surprise because he's the kind of player that you kind of get the sense that he needs to be engaged in order to be effective. And now that he's been bumped down to the bottom six, he's just not getting those minutes. He's not getting those looks like he typically was when the seven forwards that were dropped down were up in Vancouver. And so I think they need that secondary production, and I think they're also just going to need Max Hassan, Archie Bains, and Sammy Blais to just continue what they're doing. So I think the big answer is going to be Jonathan Lekkerimaki, though. If he can step up and score a few clutch goals or just make some plays out there, he's going to be the difference maker, and we just haven't seen that so far. So he's my go-to.
Dave, I lied to you. I said final one from me.
Bring him on.
I you know how I am. How I am. When you look at this series, and I don't want to make any sweeping, statements here. But like, how much of a disappointment would it be? You mentioned it, franchise best season. How much of a disappointment would it be if this team falls on Saturday?
It's an incredible disappointment. There's only one team in the league that has more wins than the Abbotsford Canucks. They're tied with two other teams, but that's an accomplishment, and they're coming in so incredibly hot. And so, for them to be knocked out, not only knocked out in the first round, but by the 7th seed, that's not a great look, right? And so, you question whether, yes, it's 7 very, very potent NHL caliber players that have dropped down, but you got to wonder if the chemistry is a little thrown off here. They get dropped down with a game or two left in the regular season, and now it seems like they're kind of scrambling to find chemistry. So, yeah, to answer the question, it's going to be a big disappointment. This is their year. This is the time to go. It's, they set themselves up for a big run, and to go out in game 3 in the first round, that's not good.
Sorry, I have another one.
I know.
I know we're talking about Abbotsford, but like this almost made me forget that you do all the prospects. Tom Malander's still not signed. Just seems just weird, right? Like it is just weird at this point. I don't think we have any update aside from this is just weird.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. And at this point, it's almost tough to talk about because, with all the reports out there that, if the reports that they're $200,000 off are true, then all I have to say is like, what are we doing here? Right. Like, it's such a bad look. It's clear. Yes, I've seen some people saying out there that hasn't put up a lot of points and he hasn't done this and, he's being greedy, but he's also put up the 12th highest point totals as a defenseman in the last 2 years as an NCAA defender. He's also a plus 47 in 77 games, and his job is to keep the puck out of the net. So he's very much worth what he's asking for. And so in my opinion, this isn't about greed. This is a sign, get him signed and just get it done. What are we doing here? He's the best defenseman prospect that we've seen since Quinn Hughes. And if they're being stingy at that level, then it's a really bad look in my opinion.
Okay. No, here's the thing. Sorry to cut you off.
Yep.
I get it. But like, have we ever heard this before with a prospect in the NHL? Like, because that's what I'm trying to say is I think there's more to the story than just like, Canucks don't want to buck up $200,000 for their first round pick. Like, I think there has to be more to the story than that, and obviously we don't know what that is. But can you think, you've covered prospects for a long time, can you think of another instance where we heard anything like this?
Not like this. Not an A prospect who willingly wants to sign, who willingly is okay with going down to the AHL, whether that's playing or not, and they're stuck up on Schedule A bonuses. I can't think of one. Maybe there is off the top of my head. There has to be something more. It just doesn't make sense in my opinion. It's a little frustrating, to be quite honest, because sitting here, again, Abbotsford is one game away from being eliminated from the season, and you could have one of their best prospects, let alone defenseman prospect, playing for them on the right side. It's incredibly frustrating. And, maybe they're posting up for a trade here, and, obviously, not to, start that, but I mean, it has to be a thought, right? Because obviously they've already established that they are going to be going for a top 6 centerman, and you're going to have to give up something. And so if they don't believe in him like we all do, then maybe that's what it's for.
Dave, great stuff as always. Thanks for doing this. People can catch you on Rink Wide Vancouver.
Yes.
Rink Wide Abbotsford, really what we should call it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Dave Hall, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, guys.
There he is. Okay. Curt Malawsky is going to join us next. But before that, I want to tell you that our guest is brought to you by Pacific Toyota dealers, who want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X, an SUV packed with plenty of space. The BZ4X can handle any terrain and can take you from the city to the slopes. It's backed by the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're driving a Toyota. And if you're driving a BZ4X, you get access to HOV lanes even if you're driving alone. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives. And now you can finance the 2025 BZ4X from 0.99% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right, we'll bring him in. Very excited, very pleased to be joined by Curt Malawsky, the head coach of the Vancouver Warriors. Curt, thanks for doing this. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, we're extremely excited to have you on. Both of us have been to lacrosse games in recent years. I was at a couple Warriors games this year, and I think the big question is, Christian Del Bianco, what's he done for your team?
Well, I guess I could put it into hockey terms. It's when we acquired him, it's just like Roberto Luongo. I really believe he's a franchise-changing type goalie. I had him in Calgary. We won an NLL championship together in 2019. He's an MVP of the National Lacrosse League. I knew what he could do. He's just made an instant impact. Just in so many facets of our game have changed because of him. And we're on a roll, and we're confident.
In the NHL, there's obviously a huge shift between regular season hockey and playoff hockey. It's its own different beast. It's its own different animal in terms of the physicality, intensity, and it's must-watch sort of TV. Does lacrosse have a similar phenomenon in terms of the difference between the regular season and playoffs and how the intensity ratchets up?
That's a great question. I was actually talking to somebody about that today, is that you kind of see the hockey guys, some of them have clinched a month ago. And some of them are, some of the older guys are kind of just cruising through, not saying they're not giving their best effort, but, for 82 games is a long time. And, they want to make sure they're healthy, hitting the stride in the playoffs. And our league, we play 18. And we clinched the second to last game of the season, and then we ended up getting the home game in the last game of the year. So for us, it's like we were 5-7 midpoint. So and the parity in the National Lacrosse League, a lot of teams are just like every single night. The latter half of the season is a playoff type battle, and so will the intensity go up? Probably a little bit. I think that the magnitude of the mistakes and key moments of the single one game elimination will actually change. But I think for the NLL, like our product, like the guys are going, they're trying to compete every night and try to make the playoffs, because again, there was to the last weekend, to the very last game was a top 8 wasn't decided. So I think it's a little bit different. Obviously the intensity of a regular season game is one thing. It will go up a bit in the playoffs, but I think what you see is what you get, especially the latter part of the season.
When you look at your team heading into the playoffs, and I don't mean this in a retrospective way at all, what are you most proud of as a coach?
I think just our resiliency. At 5-7, we could have went a different direction and then start looking about draft picks for the following year. And then we were able to make that trade and kind of changed everything. But I just think our guys battling through the 1-game losses. You put the scars on your body throughout the year, and I think we've learned from that. It's easy to say, losing is never okay, but if you learn from it, then I think it's definitely puts you on the right path. And I think there's been a lot of times I've been around the league where you've lost games and then you make the same mistakes the next night. So what I really like is our guys that just kind of turn the page, and we've learned every time we did something right or wrong, we just kind of built on it, and then we kind of thrown it out if we don't need to do it, made changes when we need to get better at it. So it's a full testament to our guys buying in and just actually, really competing and paying attention to little details.
How much of that is your veteran leadership? How much of it is you as a coach going in the room and saying, hey, we got to clean this up?
I think it's a bit of both. When we put this team together last year, we didn't have the luxury of getting a number one goaltender like Christian Del Bianco. We kind of had Aiden Walsh played himself into that for us at the latter part of last year and beginning of this year. But I think when we put the team together, we started from the back end out. And I think the big thing for us is that we wanted guys that had NLL experience in the playoffs, but more importantly, NLL championships. Everyone has to win for the first time, but if you can get someone with that NLL championship pedigree that had actually gone through the wars of a playoff run and actually won the championship, there's a difference of going there and thinking you know what it takes than getting over the hump. And that was something in free agency. You have the ability to go out and find true proven winners, and that's what we did. We bringing back Matt Beers. We already had the captain Mitski, went out and got Ryan Dilk. So anytime we had a chance to, Delbs is a winner now. Anytime we had a chance to do that, I think that makes a really big difference. And then when you have that veteran presence and they have that experience, they understand what it takes, and it makes our job as coaches a lot better, as that you could trust them that they put in the good good message out there. And, I like to think that we're one of the hardest working coaching staffs in the National Lacrosse League, and we like to think that we have unrivaled preparation. So it's a team effort. But again, you guys probably know, as a coach, you can put the plan out there. It's fully up to the players to execute. And they've done that. They've done that in spades, and I can't be more proud of them to this part.
What's the backstory of how you built your career in lacrosse, and why did Vancouver end up being such a great fit for you?
Well, it's funny. I started playing when I was 4 years old. I came a year early. I played in East Vancouver. So I spent a lot of time in the Clarny Arena and Trout Lake. And then my family moved out to Coquitlam. And that's pretty much a hotbed of lacrosse. So I played all my minor through there, played my junior A lacrosse there. My son was fortunate enough to be on the Minto Cup team that won the national championship this year in junior A. And I got a lot of roots there. And then I just, played in the WLA, and I was an electrician at a very young age. So I never went to the pro league. I was working on the tools. I was doing construction stuff. And then by the time I was 27, I get drafted as an expansion draft into Rochester. So I started playing there, but I always had a huge passion. I played for the Salmon Bellies and the Adnacks, and, very storied franchises in the Western Lacrosse League, which is very dear to my heart. And I learned a ton from those guys, and it's just always been in my blood. And, I really, really feel, pay it forward. I know this is a professional league. I know we're getting paid, but, I do a lot of coaching at the minors, do a lot of clinics, try to give back as much as I possibly can. Everyone's getting a paycheck in this league, but a lot of us are just doing it because we love it. And we're addicted to the game, and we want to really honestly grow the game, guys. And I'm not throwing a lot of BS at you. That's how I really feel. And, I just think it's an opportunity now. I see what the Eastern teams have, the Orangevilles, the Whitbys of the world, the Peterboroughs, Six Nations back East. They have, it's a special connection they have with their community. And we have that out here at BC, but we really didn't have it with the National Lacrosse League team in Vancouver. And, I was in Calgary for 15 years, and that city embraces that lacrosse team like none other than ours, obviously, in Vancouver here. But, it's special. I wanted to be able to have our fans have something to embrace and really get behind a team here in the National Lacrosse League. And, that's kind of been my driving motivation, is grow the game, get a lot of exposure. The Aquilini Group and Canucks Sports Entertainment have been phenomenal to give us every tool we can to succeed. And they've really bought in. And when the top ownerships really bought into the game, and you get the right people in place, there's a good opportunity. So it's a testament to the fans, the people, but, I'm very passionate about lacrosse, and you surround yourself with like-minded people.
And the proof's in the pudding. We've seen you guys at elementary schools, all sorts of stuff, but you talked about your playing days. How much has the league, how much has the sport changed since you played and now as a coach?
I think obviously the athletes are better. When we were, I know it sounds kind of archaic when you talk about the old hockey camps where guys went to camp to get in shape. Very similar in the NLL. Guys didn't really want to do much camps. There wasn't a lot of fitness testing. You just had to go out there and play. And if you were tough enough and you knew you could get 25 a year, then you'd be playing in the league. So the preparation that the young guys have now, I think that we had a little bit of video back then, but it was all VCRs. Put it in, plug it in, let it play. Now it's evolved so much. You got the iPads on the benches. So the technologies really help evolve our game. I think our commissioner, Brett Frood, is phenomenal. I think he does a great job growing the game. I really do think that, we got NHL owners now, which is, Buffalo, Colorado, ourselves. It's really big. And then the independent owners, Jamie Dawick in Toronto, John Arilotta in Georgia, do a really, really good job. So I think the game's really evolved with a lot to do with the NLL itself and the leadership from above there. And then the teams that are now in the league. And, but from a perspective of the players, I just think the young athletes are aspiring to go there and the skill level, like anything else, everything kind of changes from the 70s all the way up to now. And I think just the game itself has evolved, a testament to a multitude of things like I mentioned.
In the NHL, fans are accustomed to watching these long, potential 7-game series, with these quarterfinals being single-game elimination. As a coach, how do you prepare your team knowing that there's such a fine margin for error with it just being a 1-game knockout?
I think the biggest thing is, and I've been on both sides of it, winning a championship, losing a championship, and I think the old adage is remember who you are. I think that's huge. I don't think you based the magnitude of the game, you can't change it. I've been preaching to our guys all year long. It's like, play where your feet are. Don't change based on the situation. I always say, someone's character, true testament of someone's character is when no one's looking, when no one's around. What are you going to do? You're going to open that door. You're going to pick up that money, give it back to that person. And it's very much the same analogy here. Don't change your character based on the situation that we're in, based on the magnitude of the game, based on, how the temperature of a game is. And I think that's kind of been my philosophy as a coach. And we've kind of instilled that in Vancouver. We play 5 minutes at a time. And if you actually break the game down into 12 5-minute segments, and you just play those 5 minutes in front of you, you really focus on our process. And I know I sound like I'm throwing a bunch of sports psych stuff at you, but we've done it and we've won championships on that mentality. So to take away the magnitude of the game or what's on the line is really just break it down and play the shift in front of you. And we kind of do that, and we've done it all year. And it really does help our young guys not be nervous. You might not have a good 5 minutes, but you know what? You got another 11 of them to go after it and get it back. And I think that really helps guys play where their feet are and keeps them grounded, and it takes a lot of the pressure away.
Kurt, you talked about coaching youth lacrosse. We've actually got a few young lacrosse players in the chat right now that are watching this. And the question was just like, what's your message to aspiring lacrosse players? What does it take to get to the NLL?
I think like anything else, I think, nothing comes easy. You got to put hours and hours of practice in. You got to be passionate about the sport. You got to want to be at the arena. And I always say honest effort gets you an honest result. I spent hours and hours as a young guy at Smith Box in Coquitlam, and I was there right after school. I was there till it got dark, and it was every summer. And it was because it wasn't because I just wanted to hang out with buddies. I wanted to play the game. I wanted to get better. But then you kind of, like I said earlier, you get like-minded people that want to be out there. But I think, you have to enjoy the game. You have to make sure that you're having fun at it. You got to put the time and the work in, and you got to feel good about what you did that day. One of my biggest coaching philosophies at a young age is you coach from the bottom up. You don't take your 5 best players and scoot them off and show them all these special plays where you got 10 other kids that are getting lost in the shuffle. I'm a firm believer. I'll give my assistant coach my top kids, and I'll take the bottom 5 kids and I'll try to make them better. The other part of my philosophy is to make sure that the kids, when they leave the arena, they feel good about what they did that day. And I don't have a 24-hour rule when it comes to the young kids. It's like if someone said something bad about someone in the dressing room or someone made someone feel bad, I want to know about it right away and I want to clean it up. And I think the biggest part about lacrosse for me is a team sport. So what I would say to that young guy is obviously the practice, the passion, but the biggest thing I would say is coachability, and really you want to be known as a good teammate. I always say good people make good teams, and I really instill that with the young kids, is that you could play anywhere if you're a good teammate. And you can fit into any system in any sport. So I think that's kind of gets lost sometimes in translation with parents. They want their kids to be 50 goal scorers. They want them to do this and they want them to do that. I think just being a good teammate and a good person and having a passion for the game will get you to the next level, but you got to put the hours in. You got to be committed.
Kurt, phenomenal stuff. Thanks so much for taking the time today. We'll see you on the bench there. We're excited to get out there.
Right on, guys. I was pumped to get on here, so it means a lot. So thanks for having me out. I'd love to be back again.
Oh, anytime. Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, Kurt.
Thanks, guys.
There he is, Curt Malawsky. You can watch his Vancouver Warriors in the playoffs for the first time since they've moved downtown. Tickets can be purchased at vancouverwarriors.com/playoffs, and they start at just $35. I hate that I have a baseball game tomorrow, but maybe I'll wrap up in time to get out there with you, Harm. We'll talk. But yeah, thanks again to Curt Malawsky for joining the show. I feel smarter, and you know what's funny? Not to dox myself too much, but like I grew up very close to that Smith lacrosse box that he's talking about. So anyways,
that's cool.
I like that. Yeah, it's a cool lacrosse box. Okay, let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by the Vancouver Canadians. Okay, they're back on the road this week in Everett, but they're back at the Nat on Tuesday, April 29th. That's next week for a homestand versus Hillsborough. Check out the Nooner at the Nat on Friday, May 2nd. A great excuse to get the weekend started early, and then make sure you head on out for the White Spot Family Fun Sunday on May 4th, where kids get to run the bases post game. And hey, it's May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. It's Star Wars Day at the Nat. For tickets, call 604-872-5232 or check out canadiansbaseball.com. Okay, let's get to anyone else. Playoff hockey, Harm. It's been good. It's been pretty damn good. Oilers going to Calvin Pickard tonight for Game 3 against the LA Kings. No real surprise there. This is very reminiscent of what happened last year with the Oilers in the series against the Vancouver Canucks. But for it to happen in the first round, like the Oilers haven't been good. Evan Bouchard has been awful. They look lost without Matthias Ekholm. Your take that Matthias Ekholm is the Oilers' most important defenseman is aging like fine wine. It was the move to go to Calvin Pickard. Like, it was the right move. You can't throw Skinner back out there.
Absolutely. Now, they have been a defensive tire fire in front of Skinner as well. You alluded to some of Bouchard's breakdowns. I mean, Darnell Nurse at times has been caught out of position as well. But this is the thing people forget is more often than not, as goaltender, you're still expected to stop grade A opportunities. You're not expected to have like a 60% save rate or below on high danger chances. Even when you look statistically, it should be higher than that. And Skinner got lit up plenty of times there. But I don't think it's as simple as, goalie change and you have a lot more confidence in Pickard necessarily. He's going to right the ship. They have defensive messes that they've got to clean up. And it starts with the power play for LA, finding a way to slow it down, which is so ironic because it was special teams that single-handedly won the Oilers this series against the Kings last year. Whereas now, even after game one, I wasn't convinced. Yeah, LA scored twice, and their power play has been really effective since Andrei Kuzmenko got there and the 5 forward unit they're running there. But I figured at some point, okay, the Oilers power play is going to get going. I don't think they're going to score multiple power play goals every game. And then they somehow top game one and get 3 on the man advantage. That's huge. And ultimately with the Oilers, they have issues beyond the goaltending. I mean, the blue line without Ekholm, the scoring depth as well. How many guys do they have that can drive offense this year outside of McDavid and Draisaitl? You're seeing the cumulative effects of having lost Ryan McLeod, having lost Dylan Holloway, having lost Warren Fogle, who's on the other side. They just don't have the same level of depth, and you can see there's sort of way too reliant on 97 and 29 to do the heavy lifting right now.
Ty David said this in our chat. Leon drafted in 2014. Connor drafted in 2015. The Oilers have had a decade to find a good goalie, and they have failed. Harmon, is Mikko Koskinen the best goalie they've ever had in those years? Mike Smith, maybe? Am I forgetting anybody?
Might be Mike Smith, which is tough. That's tough if the best answer that you have is aging Mike Smith. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. Is, like, big picture as well, the Oilers don't have this super long runway. I mean, you're always going to have a chance when you've got McDavid and Draisaitl, but as far as the cup window, look at the age of some of their other core pieces. Zach Hyman's 32. Matthias Ekholm is 34 years old. You look up and down the roster, some of the other pieces. Nugent Hopkins is 31 years old as well. Darnell Nurse is 29. And they don't have much in the way of emerging young talent coming other than Savoy. So where are they going to get their next crop of supporting high-end forwards? The Dylan Holloways, right? That's a concern to me if I'm the Oilers, not to mention Bouchard isn't far away from needing a pretty big contract. And in a world where Matthias Ekholm isn't going to be around forever, how comfortable are you paying him to be a number one defenseman?
I don't think very. And it's going to be a really interesting conversation when he needs that contract. Okay. Anything else on the Oilers you want to say? Like, we ended up talking about the Oilers a little more than I thought. I thought we were going to kind of run through the slate here because I got some Leaf stuff to talk about.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm officially on the wagon. People don't want to hear it. I'm officially rooting for them Leafs. They're coached by Craig Berube now. No.
You traitor.
No.
Dude, stop this. This is egregious. This is outrageous.
No, they've got a coach now who is respectable and has the players respectful. These players are wearing suits to the rink, unlike before when it was, what's Austin Matthews wearing today? Oh my gosh. And
dude, just last week I saw a shot of William Nylander wearing something that it wasn't exactly a suit and tie.
They have the attitude of wearing suits to the rink, is what I should have said. Unlike
what does that even mean?
Oh, Harm, you would know. Trust me. You'll know when you see it. When you watch my Leafs play, you know. You should know. I don't know if you've caught all the games, but these guys are back checking hard. There's no shift being taken off by any player on that team. Craig Berube's a great coach. That's all I'm trying to say.
You can say that, all right, I buy the Leafs as a threat to potentially go deep in the playoffs this year. Fine, but I'm jumping on the bandwagon. I'm rooting for these guys. That just disgusts me, to be totally honest. You're such a traitor.
What?
Like a year ago, you were crying about how much of a fraud Mitch Marner was with me.
Well, now he's coached by Craig Berube. That's what I'm saying. Mitch can't wait to get to free agency, go to another soft coach, and get to do whatever he wants.
Okay, so two things. First of all, this is the Ottawa Senators, right? Sens are a good team, but nobody views them as a legit contender. It's a far easier first round matchup than years past when they've had to play Boston and Tampa. So take some of their early dominance with a grain of salt. Secondly, Berube's done a good job in Toronto, unquestionably. But I don't like this notion that he deserves all the credit and he's the sole reason that they've turned it around, because Anthony Stolarz and finally having really high-end goaltending is a huge reason they're up in the series. It isn't just the shift from, before they were freewheeling, pure skill, didn't know how to play defense, and now they know how to lock it down and play this gritty, hard-nosed style. Stolarz has stood on his head in this series. He's been way better than Linus Ullmark. And yes, under Berube, they have made positive improvements in terms of their defensive structure, playing more of a low event style. And I agree with you. They defend the middle pretty well, particularly off the rush. But give Stolarz credit where it's due as well. Don't lump, like, this is what happens, right? A goalie gets hot and the coach gets all the credit for it.
And the other side of that coin as well. I don't know. Maybe I was a little too forward with saying my Leafs, but I
also picked the Sens to win. I picked the Leafs to win the series.
You did. I was wrong. It's one of the few times that I'll say I was wrong, because it doesn't happen often, but I was wrong. It looks like I was wrong. But also, even though I'm on the Leafs bandwagon, I still root for the funniest outcome. So blowing a 3-0 series lead to the Senators.
Oh, come on, you cannot.
Absolutely hilarious.
Wishy-washy. One moment, I'm on the Leafs bandwagon, my team, and then 30 seconds later, it'd be hilarious if they blow a 3-0 lead.
Objectively funny. Is that not true? It'd be objectively funny. It'd be funny.
Right. I agree. I'm here for their downfall, but you can't play both sides here. You're playing for both teams.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. I got one team in this series. My Minnesota Wild somehow taking a 2-1 series lead on the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm joking. I'm joking about my Minnesota Wild. But seriously, and I'd have to go back to our playoff picks, but this was a series where I was like, okay, that's going to be the shortest first round series. And it's going to be Vegas that steamrolls Minnesota. I personally, Harm, I looked at that and just said, okay, the Kaprizov line, fire. Like, it's an awesome line for the Wild. But what do they have after that? And I looked at that and said, okay, they're so heavily outmatched. Obviously on defense, Vegas outmatches them as well. They're so heavily outmatched from lines 2 through 4 that, okay, this series eventually is just going to be Vegas just steamrolling Minnesota. Where is Minnesota going to get their goals from? They've now won 2 games by a final score of 5-2.
Yeah, that surprised me a little bit. I like Vegas a lot as a team, but right now they're getting outclassed at the top lineup, plain and simple. Kaprizov and Boldy are on absolute fire right now. And on the flip side, Jack Eichel, who was a top 10 player in the NHL this year, has been too quiet. He hasn't been able to take a game over yet. Obviously only down 2-1, so they're still in it. There's still an opportunity for him to definitively take over. But this is the weird part about the playoffs sometimes is, on paper, you're absolutely right. And it's why I picked Vegas to originally win the series, is from lines 2 to 4 and on the back end, the Golden Knights are the deeper team. But the discrepancy in terms of the production each side is getting from their star players is just so wide right now that that's why Minnesota is up 2-1. And game 2 as well, I was blown away. And not in a good way, obviously, by how egregious some of Vegas's defensive breakdowns were. That's a team that for years under Bruce Cassidy is so locked down defensively. When they won the Stanley Cup, it was so hard to get to the middle against them. To see uncharacteristic mistakes from some of their experienced defensemen in game 2 particularly was really disappointing. And I'd have to think that at least on the defensive side of things, I would expect them, based off their big picture track record, to tighten things up, but they're still going to need their big guns to come through offensively to fight back in the series.
Can we make this our final day to change our picks of any series?
We already know.
Please. Because I think we're going to see some sweeps. I'm going to be honest with you. I think we're going to see some sweeps. I think Toronto might sweep the Senators. My Leafs. I don't think it's fair that Matthew Tkachuk and Brad Marchand are allowed to be on the same team. Did you see the video last night of them both chirping at the bench? Dude, I would just look forward and don't say anything. You can't win a chirp battle when both of those guys are against you. You just can't do it. It's not fair that those guys are on the same team.
Yeah,
And the Panthers just look so good. The Panthers look so good.
They found a way to shut Kucherov down.
Yeah.
Right. And again, in the Vegas series, we were talking about how Eichel hasn't stepped up. Kucherov has been so quiet, and I don't expect Tampa to get swept. I expect them to fight back.
Yeah.
But man, the way that the Panthers have defended, how stifling their forecheck has been, and how much of a luxury it is to have Marchand, Lundell, and Luostarinen as your third line. They're just so deep. They're going to get Aaron Ekblad back on the blue line too. I got that series wrong.
What did you think of Winnipeg St. Louis? Did you get a chance to watch it? This is the one that I only got to watch a bit of.
I only got a chance to watch a bit of it last night.
Okay. 7-2 for my Blues. We're coming back. We're storming back.
We had that one on in the studio when we were watching the Abbotsford game, prepping for rink wide. That was playoff Connor Hellebuck, man. He did not look good. And there was a couple weird bounces, but also kind of the same thing we saw last year where there were some cross-ice passes that ended up getting past him. I'm hoping for the Jets and Hellebuck's sake that was a one-off and they're going to bounce back, take 3-1 lead. But you just know that if St. Louis can win game 4 and even that series up, all the pressure goes on the Jets. And it's like, oh no, is it happening again? So I think game 4 probably decides that series. I know that's kind of not a hot take to say, but truly, like, I think the winner of game 4 wins that series.
That's a good take. 3 game 3s tonight. You're not in trouble till you lose at home. Montreal returns home down 2-0. The Devils return home down 2-0. They're without Brendan Dillon and Luke Hughes again tonight, so keep an eye on that. Edmonton returns home down 2-0. All of our picks, actually no, didn't we all pick the Oilers to beat the Kings?
No, I picked the Kings to beat
I picked
the
the Kings.
Did I?
You were the
Kings
only one.
too?
I think you were the only one that picked the Oilers.
Are you sure? I think I might have picked the Kings.
Oh, we'll have
Then
to go
why
back
were
and
you
watch
saying
it.
all of us picked Oilers?
Well, because I forgot for a second. But what I'm saying is, do we all agree that the teams, well, I know Jacob's not going to agree with Washington, but the teams that are ahead in these series are probably just going to go on to win the series?
I wouldn't go that far.
The Canes are closing it out against the Devils.
Yes.
I mean, I still think Washington probably wins now, and Montreal needed one of those first 2.
Yeah.
And it's tough for the Habs because I thought they played 4.5 really good road playoff periods, but the period and a half that they did not look very good, Washington took advantage and scored goals and ended up winning those first 2 games. Like, Montreal has not looked out of Washington, or Washington's not looked out of Montreal's league. It's just, hey, that's a team with some superstar players that stepped up and scored in big moments, plus Anthony Beauvillier looking like prime Nicholas Backstrom.
And hey, like Logan Thompson too, right? Like Logan Thompson,
he's been awesome.
So good.
He's
been so
unreal.
good. Yeah.
You know what? That's been a little bit like the Leafs Sens series, where it's not like the Sens aren't competitive in these individual games. They're close, but the other side has had terrific goaltending, and you've had the sort of inexperienced lulls and stretches where, like the Caps, I can't remember if it was game 2. Yeah, it was game 2. The second period stretch where the Canadians opened the scoring, but then for the next 10 to 15 minutes, the Caps just completely dominated. I feel like the experienced teams haven't had. Well, I shouldn't say that because game 1 in the third period, Montreal kind of did give that to Washington, but in the Sens Leaf series, Toronto has had a level of control about it when even when the Sens have pushed, they haven't surrendered too many grade A chances. And I see some parallels in those 2 series where both underdog teams, Ottawa and Montreal, have been competitive. They've kept it close, but it just strikes me as like both in both series, like Toronto and Washington have a little bit more firepower, have a little bit more experience, and don't have as many sort of like just huge lulls where they have major defensive lapses.
Okay, I want to talk about this. Couple things that I want to get to before we close out today. Trevor Linden joined Sportsnet 650 yesterday and said some things about Elias Pettersson. Nothing we haven't heard from him before after the playoffs last year. Linden said similar comments about Pettersson needing to get into the fight and being disappointed with his playoff performance, all that sort of stuff. Linden joined yesterday as well, talked about his playoff experience, said when you're not feeling it, you got to get in the fight. It just wasn't there. Even though things aren't clicking for you, you got to get in the battle. Let's be honest, that's what playoff hockey is. People in chat were asking what Linden said. So this was the quote that I think this is the one that's really different from what he said last year, because obviously now it's been a whole year since Linden talked about Pettersson. He said, "It's just amazing to see such a talented, gifted player look so off in certain spots. It's interesting. It's a big year for him coming up for sure. This was a big miss this year. You can't have a guy like that making that kind of money and not have the contribution you need." We've talked about Pettersson quite a bit, and we've talked about the idea that it's probably in their best interest to keep him. One thing that I've started to think about is just like, you have to look at probabilities, right? And in the spirit of your idea that, okay, well, if you're bad, you're going to lose Quinn Hughes anyway. Like, what's the best outcome if you trade Pettersson? If you're the Canucks, right? Get some cap flexibility for many years. Awesome. Maybe you get an asset back of some sort. It's not going to be as good as a top flight center that you were paying for. How much better does that make you next year? Whereas if Pettersson bounces back, and I know that sounds crazy to some people, you get what you need. You get that top line center that we keep saying, like, oh, how are they going to trade for a top six center? And Alvin was just point blank about that. And he said, we need Pettersson to bounce back. I look at that and say, like, yeah, out of the two outcomes, you have to just hope that Pettersson's going to bounce back. I don't think you're going to get what you want for him in trade, and I don't think it's going to be worth your while to trade him.
And I think based off management's commentary during end of season availabilities, that seems to be the way that they're leaning as well. I'll be honest, I don't buy that Rutherford is the biggest Pettersson believer or the biggest Pettersson fan. I mean, think about it from his perspective. For years, he had Sidney Crosby as his 1C, as his model franchise center. You don't think that Rutherford is comparing Crosby to Pettersson in terms of, like, what does a cup winning 1C look like in terms of the consistency of on ice performance, leadership, preparation, habits, the ability to rise to the occasion instead of, wilting the playoffs like Pettersson did last spring. I bet you that Rutherford doesn't love the idea of betting on Pettersson as their 1C, and yet I still think the organization understands, well, the true franchise centers of Crosby's caliber don't exactly grow on trees. They're not readily available. So you're also in a spot just to get into the playoffs. Forget winning a cup and going deep in the playoffs. You have to get there first. And to get there, you still need guys that can put up a lot of points, that can drive offense, that can be game breakers. And this organization is so short on those types of players that can effortlessly put up 70 to 80 plus points that you almost have to bet on Pettersson bouncing back, considering this would be a different conversation in a different scenario if the Canucks didn't feel the heat to win during the 2 years that Quinn has left on this contract. Then you could talk about, okay, maybe you want to retool on the fly, but you can't afford to do that. You have to find a solution now, and betting on him, even if you aren't the biggest believer, is probably the most straightforward path for that.
Yeah. Yep. Caltros Rico said asset management dictates you hold on to generational talent and hope it bounces back, right? I don't know if we call Pettersson generational, but you get the sentiment that you've seen it before. We've seen it, right? We've seen it. He knows the pressure's on him. You hope that you see a bounce back. I wanted to mention this as well. Jeff Patterson tweeted this today. It's the 6th anniversary of the passing of Jason Botchford. Obviously, Botch holds a special place in both of our hearts. The Botchford project continues to live on and keep his memory alive, and I just wanted to make sure that we at least mentioned it today.
Yeah, I mean, there are times when things happen, and I just wish Botch like, I think what would Botch have been writing about right now? Or I would love to just have read an Athletes right now. I mean, with all the Pedersen stuff going on, with the Willander stuff, just everything we've seen over the last half a dozen years, not to mention how terrific he was as a person, as a mentor, as a father, as a family man. Those things are obviously first and foremost, but on top of that, I still find myself thinking, what would Botch have reported or have said in some of these crazy moments in this market?
Hey, like I know I shared this already a while ago, but on Botchford Project Day, I happened to be talking to Elias Pettersson, and he's one of the only players that was around when Botch covered the team. It was him and Brock Besser. That's it, right? That was around when he covered the team. And I was chatting with PD about it, and I said, like, I hear from fans all the time that they wonder like what Botch would be talking about and like what he would be doing. And Pete even admitted that, like, yeah, to some extent, even he thinks that sometimes. He's like, you wonder about what it would be like for him to still be here and to be covering the team. And as I said at the time as well, Pete said of the Botchford Project that he's just glad that Botch's memory lives on. Okay. What else do we have in the chat here? Oh yeah, there was a Talk It thing today, wasn't there?
Yes, but before we get there, I just want to say you read a Calcio Storico comment. He wasn't actually talking about Pettersson. He was responding to something else in the chat, talking about Quinn Hughes. So the generational talent he was referring to was.
Well, I agree with you then that Quinn Hughes is a generational talent. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Okay, wasn't there a Talk It thing that happened today, Harm? Oh yeah, he's back in Vancouver, but this idea that he's back in Vancouver, he's here to negotiate, that was apparently always the plan. I believe this came from Rick Dollywall. I apologize. I didn't really see too much of it, but this idea that he's back in Vancouver, he's re-signing, he's back in Vancouver. There's going to be discussions. Don't forget that Jim Rutherford said by the end of this week hopes to have a decision. What do you consider the end of the week? It's Friday, right? Like, are we looking at a Friday 3 p.m.? It's 2:51 right now as we close out the show. Are we gonna have to hop back on in 8 minutes and start talking about a Rick Tocchet extension?
We'll see. It is interesting that it's been relatively quiet, that there haven't been a lot of leaks this week, because you'd imagine that a lot of reporters would have been poking around at every source possible to get a sense of what exactly is going on right now.
He's back in town. That seems to be all we can figure out, is that he's back in town after a little 5-day vacation. Okay, anything else you wanted to get to?
Did you see the Nick Cousins, the NHL's investigating?
Did you see Travis's answer?
Yeah.
Oh, so good. For those that haven't seen it, he's asked about it. And look, the reporting out of Toronto, Elliot Friedman, Darren Dreger, all these guys right on top of it, right on top of the investigation. And Travis's answer was, well, it's an open investigation, so I don't think I should comment on it. And obviously he's being very, very sarcastic. Yeah, it's gamesmanship. And the league fines the Senators $25,000 and fines Nick Cousins as well. It's pretty funny. To be honest with you,
I love how the video is in like 240p as well.
Yes. Yeah. Gotta come down hard on reckless behavior like that. Player safety doing its job. But nothing for Filipino. Nothing for Jason Dickinson on that hit on Filipino. But hey, don't flip pucks in warm-up. Don't do that. Especially not against my Leafs. Okay. I'm gonna get to our Bet365 bet of the day. We're taking a money line tonight. The Oilers are heavy favorites in Edmonton. You're not in trouble till you lose at home. So, people think, yeah, Edmonton's got it. Edmonton's going to figure it out. But, I'm not allowed to bet on the Habs. Okay, we're going with the Kings. Kings underdogs here, plus 125 money line. You can get the Kings money line, plus 125 to take down the Oilers and make the Oilers in trouble with a home ice loss. That was our bet of the day, brought to you by Bet365. Want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs? At Bet365, they've got you. From game props, player props, totals, and the money line, you can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, the Stanley Cup champions, and much, much more. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 90 plus play. If you play, please play responsibly. All right, we will wrap it up there. Our thanks again, double guest. It was a long episode today. Our thanks again to Dave Hall for joining us. Make sure you catch him and Jeff Patterson on Rink Wide Abbotsford on Saturday night after that game. And of course, Curt Malawsky as well for joining the show today. For my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar. Have a great weekend, folks. My name is Jake Wajelli. Thanks so much for this episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.